Okay, how you doing there? It's Keith Hayden. I probably shouldn't be recording this right now because I'm not in a very good headspace, but I'm going to do this download. This is going to be a digital novelist underground. This isn't going to be on the main podcast because I'm a little pissed off right now. And I'm going to get into why in a second. But yeah, I think I'm just, I go through and I think some people may have seen me online and they see all of the stuff that I've done. They see the books, the stories, the videos, the music, the apps, all the other shit that I've put out over the last several years. And I don't honestly don't know what they think. I mean, I've met a few people who are very impressed by it and who have been even inspired by what I've put together in the last few years, especially knowing that it's all me. There's no team. There's no there's not a lot of financial I don't have a lot of that going on. I do a lot of this just on my own budget, and I really have I've put a lot of this stuff together on my own. But not a fucking day goes by that I don't see some shit online that I'm just like, it's just frustrating because I see people every day, almost daily online, that are like, all you have to do is be authentic. All you have to do is just be yourself and do it every day and show up and keep going. And then this will happen, or X will happen, or Y will happen. And that has just not been my experience. Like, not at all. And it's one of those days where I just feel like this is why this shit is going to be on the underground. Because, you can't have people hearing you when you're down. Because they just, I don't know. Like, some people can get away with bitching in public and online, and they'll get a bunch of sympathy. That has not been my experience. The rare times that I've actually publicly released some shit like this, like basically like a rant, it has not gone well for me. Either it's ignored, which is equally frustrating, especially when you're like, in your feelings and shit and nobody cares. Or it's like the opposite reaction. Like, what the fuck you complaining about, whatever, this type of thing. And I know everybody goes through this. I was just on a call yesterday with a good friend of mine who does actually look up to me, and he just told me this yesterday, that he was inspired to start his podcast because he saw my podcast. And that was really nice. That was really good. And I love inspiring people. I think that's a big part of why I do what I do. I love inspiring people to tell their own stories, to have confidence in their abilities, even if it's not much. We all got to start from somewhere. And I really love spreading that message. But the other side of this equation is that I'm trying to run a business. I'm actually that's why I went through all the paperwork 2 years ago to establish my business. It is a legitimate LLC. I've got an EIN number and everything. And I'm actually trying to run a business. And that has not happened yet. And, I gotta, the part of this is just, it's one of those days. This is one of my off days during the week where I make work optional for myself. So, it's one of those days where I step back and I don't have my nose to the grind. I don't force myself to write on these days. I don't force myself to do Japanese or to do coding, do the things that I would normally do on a work day, right? Basically have 5 work days a week and then 2 days where it's like, okay, let's decompress, spend time away from this shit. Because it literally has been for the past 6 or 7 years that I've been really trying to figure this stuff out. And like a lot of people, I've gone through various phases, and of course you go through that whole beginner phase where you don't know anything and you're not really sure what you're about. You're not really sure what you want out of this whole thing. You're just you're forced because you don't know through ignorance, but you're forced into playing these games that other people are playing, and maybe that's not the right game for you. And I've had that happen so many times. And I was just starting to think, and I think this hit me 2 days ago. I was just like, how the fuck do people make money these days? I mean, like online, like doing this type of thing outside of, doing a 9 to 5 and getting a job like that. Like, how do people do it? Like in the creator economy, so-called creator economy, right? Which is kind of bullshit at this point. I feel like the introduction of AI has kind of watered the creator economy down and really diluted it to where, yeah, I feel like the creator economy probably lasted from, I think of like the maturity of Instagram as like the beginning of the creator economy. So maybe like 2012, certainly not like early YouTube days or anything like that, because it was still going. People really didn't know that you can make money. The first big people on YouTube were just doing YouTube because it was kind of goofy and they had some type of outlet. Maybe it was comedy, maybe it was music, maybe it was whatever. A lot of those were just old bootleg channels. They were just repurposing shit that was already on, but they had something that kept them going. And then after a while, they were, YouTube got big and they introduced monetization, and then that's, late 2000s, I should say. That's when YouTube, it became viable that you could actually make money on there. So maybe I think like 2012, 2013, a little over 10 years ago, that's when the creator economy basically began, to where people knew that you could go online and make money doing something. If you uploaded enough videos, if you got enough likes, then you could turn that into cash somehow. That became a thing early. And then I came in around 2017, and by then I already saw like, it was hard to become traditionally big, like in the early days of YouTube or in that first half of the creator economy. I remember looking at the landscape then, like really after, maybe it was like 2018. 2018 was when I did my first experiments with vlogging. And that's when I really started kind of thinking like that, oh, if I talk about this enough, at the time it was language learning. If I talk about language learning enough, then maybe I could make this into something. I wasn't thinking writing fiction at the time. But even then I saw that it was going to be really hard to do that, just because of the way things were changing. It was becoming more algorithm based. Things were changing with YouTube. Things were changing with all the platforms. They were all kind of in that second half of the creator economy where you could still make it. And some people did start around that time, and depending on your niche, that's a big determining factor. If you actually are able to put something together, because I'll get into that in a second, why it's I'm kind of annoyed today, but yeah, it depends on your niche, right? If you're talking about how to make money doing X or Instagram, then it's a lot easier to get attention because everybody needs more money. Most people do. Most people want more money. And if that's what you're selling, then you're going to get a lot of attention. And I saw the same thing, as I stayed along, 2018, 2019. 2019 is when I started writing my first novel, and then the 21 was when I got serious about, okay, let me see how this thing works. Let me take a shot and start trying to figure this whole thing out. Like, where do I fit in this thing? Since then, it's been trips down the sewers of Web3. I did that. That was probably the first real online community that I just got involved with. And then there's been other micro communities as well. But along the way, and I know it's just me, like, I just don't fit in. And people just know this from, I don't know. After a while, they just kind of sniff out an imposter in their ranks. And yeah, I don't last long. Maybe I can last maybe 2 or 3 months solid in a certain community. But after that, they just, they see the values are different. They see that I don't hold that extreme of beliefs that they do. And this has happened over and over again with me, with different online communities. And that is frustrating because it's just another, I've got to start this cycle over again. I got to integrate into a community. I got to build trust. I got to get them to believe that I can do what I say I'm doing. And then hopefully I can actually start selling things or selling services or actually getting them to read my books or whatever. And this process just keeps restarting. And that is a huge point of frustration. I've spent a lot of time on social media in the last several years, and yeah, I think the point of this recording was just kind of to rant about how I really don't know how people make money, because I know people who spend all day on X. They're in spaces, they're making content themselves, and some of them still have day jobs. So I'm guessing they're working from home, or they have a very flexible work situation that allows them to be on spaces at the same time. But I know people who do this all day, and I'm thinking, what got me thinking like this is I just joined this fiction writing community called Writing School. And the guy is literally on there, like, he's making content, he's doing his own fiction writing, he's responding to people, then he has like a coaching thing, he's got like a premium thing. And this is completely free. This man is running a community of over 1,000 writers, and he's doing it for free. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm sure there's some enjoyment there, but let that sink in. How many fucking man hours is he putting into running? Because it's a lot to run a community, and there's not just the social aspect, but there's the maintenance of it. He's got moderators. You got to check in with them. You got to all the technical shit on the production side. You've got to make sure that's good to go and squared away, and then you've got to make new content. He's making new videos every week. He's actually teaching different techniques of writing and poetry and things like that. He's basically running a school. I mean, it's called Writing School. And I checked just now before I turned this on. He has 2 premium subscribers at like $69 a pop. It's like $69 a month, which is great. But, okay, so you're telling me for $138 a month, you're doing all this work. And once again, that's not completely terrible, but it's just, it makes it, is this the standard, And hell, I think of myself, the amount of time I sit in this fucking chair, talking to myself, writing to myself, making content, responding to people. It is basically a full-time job. Like, if I had to quantify it, it would be crazy. And my wife commented the other day, like, I spent 2 years making the audio drama version of my first novel. 2 years. And that was me doing the voice acting. That was me doing the sound design. I wrote original music. I did the distribution, of course. I did all of the editing. I did everything myself. And 67 episodes. It took 2 years. From 21 to 23. I finished at the end of last year. And I didn't make a dime. And when I think about how much time and effort and passion and everything I put into that show, and the show did do well. It is still doing well. I mean, I think last I checked, it had like 30K downloads, like people actually starting. It has like over 1,000 followers on Spotify. But this is what it's become. It's become this level. Is that the standard now to actually make, and yeah, when I think about it that way, it is very sad. It is very, it's frustrating from that angle, that, yeah, you did all of this work basically for free. And, at the end of the day, it's not all about money. But the money does free you up and gives you that flexibility to not have to hunt for jobs on the side, not have to do a day job, like, especially if you're putting this much time into it, which most of the people that I know, most of the people that I regularly interact with on social media or online, they spend at least, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours a day on social media, and they're on there, they're not on there for fun. At least I don't think so. I don't think most of them are on there for fun. They're really making connections to find clients. They're trying to get people to read their writing. That's me. They're trying to find test users and beta readers and beta players for their game or whatever. There's a reason why we share this stuff, and it's because for most people, this is the most accessible way to promote their stuff. Most of us can't afford to go to every conference. Most of us surely can't afford to fly or drive to the places where, I had this problem when I was living in Japan. It was like, no way I'd see a great conference in LA or something like that, or some other place. And it's like, nope, there's no way I can attend. And even now where I'm living, there's a lot more opportunities to attend conferences and shows and groups and all these type of things, but there's still a cost associated with networking in the old way. There just is. It's, if at a minimum, it's transportation, and it's hotel, it's networking, meals, or all these other incidental costs. This shit comes up when you travel. That's not accessible to most people, but social media is. So I'm going to get to, now I wrote a couple of things down. That was a very long intro to, the ways that, if you're listening to this, maybe like you can make money as a fiction writer. Because really I've been spending more time, and it's been a good thing. I love connecting with other fiction writers, people like you who are sharing stories and are really out there trying to change the world through your stories. I really believe in that. So I'm going to talk about the main ways that I've seen that you can make money as a fiction writer, and then I'm going to dismantle why it's basically bullshit that those aren't good ways to make money, or they're not realistic for a while. The first way is book sales. And book sales are, I think people get, especially newer writers, get enamored by book sales because you see larger writers at book signings, and you see them with stacks and stacks of copies of their own books, and you see them signing autographs and shaking hands and shit. But what you don't see is what they're actually making from those books. And most, I can tell you, are probably barely making enough to cover their cost of holding that function or attending that conference or whatever. It's pretty dismal, book sales. And then top this off with the way most people distribute books. It's still regularly accepted that to distribute your books, you post your book on Amazon, you put it in KDP. I see people offering their shit for $2.99 for nothing, just to get reads, and that's fine. But we're talking about getting money. We're not talking about getting readers. That's a whole different conversation. And I see people doing this all the time, and it is just, and what's happened, I think, because that has become the standard. Like right now, even in 2024. I think that's going to change soon. I think this is going to change. But because Amazon is still the standard, how most people experience books, like through ebooks. There's still a lot of print books, but through ebooks. This is how most authors distribute their books. I think that's driven the price down. That's driven what people are willing to pay for books down. Less people are willing to pay what a book is worth. Even $19.99. I have my books on my site. If it's a physical book, I have it for $19.99. Ebook, I have it for $9.99 if you buy it directly from me. And that's like preposterous. I remember telling another author that this is what I'm selling my books for. He's like, that's so high. I was like, fuck, it is high. No, it's not. That's what I would pay for market price, for a retail price for a book. For of course, a more established author. But I put just as much work into this book. Why shouldn't I charge that? How am I going to just throw my shit up for $3? Spend a year and a half on this bitch and $3? Free? Fuck that, man. You must be crazy. But this is what's happened. So bottom line is book sales, and especially royalties. Royalties are ridiculous, y'all. Royalties are fucking ridiculous. Amazon pays out quarterly. And it feels like they're paying you in quarters because the way they calculate these royalties, first of all, you'll never truly know how they're calculating the royalties because by the time you actually pay attention to the royalty check, a whole fucking season has passed and you're not even thinking about it anymore. But yeah, I remember getting my first royalty payment back in April, actually, because I published my military autobiography in March, or at the end of February, actually. And I got my first royalty check, and it was probably like $90, which is not bad. It's not nothing. But when I think about that, when I think about what it took to get that $90, yeah, that was, bottom line is the juice is not worth the squeeze. You cannot rely on royalty payments and book sales alone. Those are not going to get you by. And you can't expect, and maybe even if you have like a bust out hit, you're going to start out with a lot of sales, but then it's going to taper off and maybe you'll have a few. It's not going to be enough. You're going to have to be working on that next book. Next way to make money is with freelance work. And I feel like every author has some type of skill that they can monetize on the side, whether it's editing or cover design or formatting, whatever. If you're a fiction writer, there's something you can monetize. The problem with this is service-based offerings take you away from publishing books. And this has always been my dilemma with offering services. I like offering services. I want to offer services. But it's one of those things. I don't want to make my business a complete service business because I don't want to stack up clients all day and then I don't have any time to write. And that's me. I mean, I know, like, this is, I'm tripping with this maybe, but I have offered services. If you go to my website now, I have services. And the tough thing about services is you have to, for at least a period of time, you have to concentrate on building up the service. Meaning, you need to hammer out exactly what you're going to offer. Second, most people don't buy services from no names, like without social proof, without testimonials, without proof that your service actually works. I can tell you most people won't buy it unless they know you personally. If they know you personally and they know you're good for it, they will buy from you. But then they also have to be in the market for whatever service you're offering. That's another thing. And I've focused my services on fiction writing. I don't have too many friends who are also interested in writing fiction. So that my services have just sat. I haven't I haven't successfully gotten any clients for any of my direct services. So that's freelance work. Freelance work is good. That's probably going to be where you could start, but then it takes down your writing time. And at the end of the day, are you running a service business or do you want to be a writer? If you want to be an editor or a cover designer, then it's a slippery slope, right? The more clients you take on, of course, you'll have more money, but then you'll be writing less. And then I thought the point was to write fiction. I thought the point was to write. Now you're not writing. You got to think about it. The third category of money I wrote down is platform revenue. I did a search on YouTube before I started recording this, how to make money as a fiction writer, just to see what comes up. And most of, there was two classes of videos that came up. It was ghostwriting, which ghostwriting is typically not a thing in the fiction space. It's more for nonfiction. And I have actually done some ghostwriting, and I can attest it does pay well. Problem is, you're not writing your own stuff. You're writing for somebody else. And once again, that's fine, but I can tell you, I've ghostwritten a book, and it's a book. It's a whole book. It takes a long time to write. And this was a special book. It probably took me 4 months of dedicated attention to write and basically publish this book. That's 4 months, y'all. That's a third of the year that you're not working on your own stuff. Now, if you can stomach that, then that's fine. But once again, I thought we were trying to write fiction here, not ghostwrite nonfiction. So that's the hard part. But platform revenue, the second class of videos that I saw, and these were by far outnumbered the ghostwriting videos, was platform revenue. And I call platform revenue anything that comes from an established platform. We're talking YouTube royalties, we're talking Medium payments, we're talking even Patreon, any Substack, whatever. Somebody's paying you based on your audience size or your content, right? And this is where you get into the dreaded fucking word that I hate, content, right? Because that's the only way to really get to this type of revenue, is to put out content. And this has been, I can tell you this has been a fucking struggle for me. Because I learned a long time ago, maybe like a year and a half ago, that I fucking hate making content for content's sake. It's like you have to fill your feed with something. In whatever platform of choice it is, it doesn't matter what it is. I've mostly been on X these last few years, but I've tried them all. Like genuinely tried all of them for at least 30 days. And you've got to keep feeding the machine. And the people that I know that have reached the threshold to actually get paid, get platform money based on content, they're mostly creating content. Meaning, what does content look like for us, for fiction writers? Well, I can tell you what it's looked like for me. It's looked like everything under the fucking sun. It's been videos, it's been music, it's been how-tos, it's been walkthroughs, it's been podcasts, it's been AI stuff, it's been newsletter shit. I don't want to say everything, but it's been pretty damn near close to almost anything that you could post that you would consider content. I've done it in the last year and a half. And my experience has been, it is so depressing when I stop and think about it. Like, I don't want to say it's been nothing, because I've definitely found some people, but I have not had that. I've had maybe one or two things that spiked that got some attention, but I haven't really found those people that I'm looking for. Either the writers that like would want or need my help writing, fiction writers, or readers who are interested in reading what I'm writing. I haven't found those people. And I understand this, I understand. I'm writing in a niche genre, one of the genres I made up I made up myself, so that makes it tougher. And I'm writing horror, which right now my current project is a supernatural horror novel, and I'm finding that horror tends to be one of those polarizing genres that it's love or hate. And in the corners of the social media that I've been on, it's mostly hate. And like they won't even touch it. If they're reading, then I don't know. Maybe they're reading it, but I don't know if they are, because I have minimal comments when I post about my novel. I'll post snippets. I'll post, like I said, I post images, I post videos, me talking about it, behind the scenes podcast, that type of thing. And I've done this for, the better part of the last 6 months. I've done this fairly regularly, talking about this project. And I haven't really found anybody on there. And part of this is, I know, you got to go, and this is, business 101. You got to go where people appreciate you, where people find, are interested in your stuff. And that's been the challenge, because I've been building on, in my case, X, that's been my main platform. I've been building on there for the past 4 years. And it's, part of me is like, I don't want to leave because I've put so much fucking work into it. I have over 10,000 posts, all the account shit. Every time you jump platforms, you have to start from scratch, from zero. Like, you don't know anybody. It's like moving to another city, basically. It's like I already know everybody there, but then it's like I'm not finding the right people that resonate with my work, would resonate what I'm putting out. And so maybe I should move. Maybe that's what I'm getting to with this, for this recording this long rant. Maybe I should just leave it. And I'm already planning on not re-upping my X premium at the end of this month. This month being October, it's almost over. I think my premium expires next week. I think Monday it expires, and it's Thursday when I'm recording this. So I got 4 days left until, because X, like when you don't pay for it now, it's a weird experience. There's ads everywhere. It's just, yeah, to get the most out of it as a creator who's actually trying to grow and find the right people and run a business, premium is almost required, and they've made it that way by design. What can you do about all this? I always like to, even though this is a rant recording, this underground episode of Digital Novelist Podcast, what can you do? Well, it's just keep going, I guess, but it's keep going in like a strategic way, right? It's that iteration. It's not doing the same thing and expecting different results, because that's where I've been at. I took a break from X while I moved during the summer, and I took basically 2 months off from it. Like, I wasn't really posting. I just my account was just minimal. And then I came back last month in September, and it's one of those things with social media, and I've noticed this even with my email list too. It's kind of like you want to be consistent, but if you're too consistent, like if you're always there, then people just start ignoring you just out of routine. It's like, oh, it's Keith again. Oh, it's her again. Oh, you. Look how, they just start ignoring you. And I've noticed this on social media. I've noticed this with my email list. Like, whenever I get too froggy with emails, like I was on a streak with emails for the last 2 weeks. If you're on my list, you've been getting emails from me. Updates about the novel, because I am working on the novel basically every day. I try to make the emails brief. I try and make them a little bit interesting. Sometimes I just share a link, share a video, in and out, because I understand. Like, I know the way people read I know how I read email, so I assume that's how you read email. You get the notification, maybe you scan it. If it's not important or if it's not interesting, you're like, I'll look at it later, and you never look at it later. This is how we would consume email nowadays. Gone are the days where you sit in front of your desktop and scroll and read every fucking email. I don't know about you, but most of my fucking emails are spam these days. They're spam, they're ads, they're promotions, they're lifeless newsletters that people are sending out weekly just because they want to stay top of mind. It's clear because the newsletters are repetitive and dull and they're boring. So I've unsubscribed from most of the ones that I was in. But yeah, so this is how it's email. But it's one of those things, like, there's definitely a balance to be had with just showing up online in general. And I think I'm going to be doing more things like this, where I just drop shit on my website. And because the website is really the only thing that I never really want to go down, just because it is becoming a repository. It's fast becoming a large repository for access to my work. But as far as social media stuff, it's almost like you can't do it. You can't do it every day. You've got to, like, pick periods of days. I think I'm going to start doing it kind of randomly, actually. I'm going to do it like I do a lot of other things. I'm just going to, one or two. One, I do social media today. Two, it's nothing. If I put something out, it's just going to be on my website. And you're going to have to, guess what? Check my website if you want to see what I'm up to. Because I'm basically doing stuff every day. But yeah, I feel like people just we get so desensitized very quickly these days just because there's so much. And I get it. You just get used to everything really fast. And, you can only pay attention to so much. But as somebody who's trying to make a living with this and really, make something happen with fiction, then it's like, well, I want to make sure, because it always happens. Every time I'm off for like a break, I took a break from X for 2 months. I come back. It's like, hey, he's back. Hey, what happened? Substack, same thing. I left Substack for a good 3 or 4 months. And then just last week, I go on there. I start posting some poetry. I post a short story. And everybody's like, hey, he's back. And then a fucking week later, they're like, oh, it's you again. It's nothing special. And it's like, and I get that. Like I said, I understand all this because this is the way it goes. But I think that's the strategy that I'm going to start executing from now on. It's just going to be, look, one, I send stuff out to you. I send stuff out. I post it as per normal, like I have been doing. Two, it's ignore that shit and just do what it do. Right. Still make stuff, but then it'll just be on the website. I think that's all I had to say about this. It's just a rare mood that I'm in where I'm just, I'm not mad, but I know I'm feeling a little impatient. I'm feeling a little frustrated by the whole game and where things are going. And I'm not even going to start talking about AI and things like that, where that type of thing. But it's just because it's just too much. It's just too much to think about. But I do believe that I have important stories to tell. I know you have important stories to tell, and we got to tell them. We got to tell them whether people are reading them or not. Whether people are, because I mean, that's the way it is with a lot of writers, right? Like, and this is pretty terrible, but they don't get really recognized until they're dead. You think people were, a lot of writers while they're alive, it's that thing, right? Like I said, people get desensitized to them, and they're like, oh, it's just Alexander Hamilton going off again. Oh, it's just that Dostoevsky. You know how he is. Oh, that Hemingway. He's so crazy. And I'm pretty sure, in the time, some of them were famous in the time. Like I know Hemingway was pretty famous at the time. But a lot of authors, that's not the way it is. It's only like posthumously that people are like, oh, he was a pretty good writer. Look at all the stuff that he made. Look at all this stuff that she did. I hope that doesn't happen to you. I hope that doesn't happen to me. I'm trying to make something happen while I'm above ground. And I'm gonna keep doing that. And I really recorded this for you who, because I've been meeting so many fiction writers and I know how hard this is. It's just hard. And I was planning on doing another recording. Actually, I may do that tomorrow. Basically, like the things that I've seen, like the top issues among fiction writers, like what's holding people back based on what I've seen in the community that I'm in the writing school. Because it is hard to put your feelings out there, just to shape it and sculpt it into words. It's art. But the problem is, throughout human history, there's always a price for art. There's always a price for art. For making it, for consuming it, there's always a price. And I'm not just talking monetary. I think you get what I'm saying. That price for us as the creators of art is a piece of us that we leave behind, that we put and we share with other people. And it takes a vulnerability, it takes courage to really do it right and write the story that, is not going to be just commercially successful, but that still speaks to you, because you won't get through the story that you don't like. You have to have some type of resonance with it to even get to the end. That's all for this podcast. You know what? I may just put this out. Fuck it. Not everything is always sunshine and rainbows, especially on this side. It's just not. And I think these are things that most authors know. Fiction authors I'm focused on. But I don't know how many people talk about it. I've never really heard people talk about it. I only hear the success stories, and it's like, ain't no success in that regard yet. I want to say in like the business regard. There's definitely been success in artistically, and I've grown creatively. My craft has just skyrocketed this year. I almost can't wait until the end of the year so I can actually like do some math and tally out how much I've written. I know I've written more this year than any other fucking year in my life. This has been an incredible year for volume and quality too of writing. I've really put it out. How about you? How much have you written this year? I hope it's a lot. I'll see you next time.